Hi, this is Brent and Stacey-jean Inion with Travel Deep and Wide, and we just received 2 questions, and we've heard these questions a lot over the years, so we're going to try to address them. First question is...
Whose idea was this to travel full-time anyway?
That's easy.
Her
His.
idea. As we think about it, we have been pulling together on this whole journey. If you are asking the question, well, what if my spouse doesn't want to travel and I do?
Which we are asked all the time. I want to travel, my husband doesn't. Or, help, I want to travel and my wife wants to stay home. And here's our advice.
Yes, the best and simple answer and then a more complex answer. The simple answer is this: don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's not worth the constant friction that'll happen all along the journey if you're not together on the idea. We've been pulling together on this for the last, 17 years, but on our full-time travel for the last 8.5 years.
Yeah, a little over 9.
So that's the short answer. Everybody makes their decisions based upon the information that they receive, right?
Right.
So, if you're going to fill your mind with, you've got to do this, this, and this every day in the same place, fine. But if you're going to read more widely about different cultures, about how different people do different things around the world, read things about travel, you can't help but begin to influence yourself and influence one another about what you read.
So it's been 9.5 years.
Okay.
We were not 2007 and we took off.
Yes.
So it's a pretty incredibly long time.
So yes, what you ever take in... Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so I was... definitely do not take off traveling without your spouse on board with you. That's number one. Brent is a visionary, without a doubt. I didn't understand that when we first got married. If you don't understand that term visionary, somebody that's an adventurer, somebody that is constantly coming up with new ideas and wants to jump in and try it out. And before I got married, I watched a lot of marriages because I'm a wife, as I'm a woman. I watched the female end on this. And I watched a lot of marriages where men wanted to do something that felt extraordinary, whether it's leave an engineering job and move and go farm in the country, or whether it's, generally it had to do with changing careers while everyone else thought the person was mad. And I made up my mind before we got married that I was going to be the kind of wife that was going to support my husband in whatever crazy venture he wanted to go in. And we've been like that with one another, and I think that's one of the strengths in our marriage, and it's one of the strengths in marriages that we most respect. Life is meant to be an adventure. It's meant to be a journey. So if your wife and your husband really wants to do something like this, my encouragement to you is to go with it. Just throw off the fear and jump in. The water's wonderful, and life is an adventure, and you'll look back years later and be so glad for what you accomplished.
I never really saw myself as a visionary. If you're one of those, and of course your spouse knows you better than you know yourself at many times, a caution to that is, and this is the nightmare that anybody who's not a visionary might have as a spouse, is, all right, the visionary is going to forge on ahead, and the rest of the family, the wife and the children, will come kicking and screaming, pulling in the opposite direction all the way. If you are a visionary, then you ought to have a good equal dose of listening and sensitivity and
Yes.
knowing, whatever I can say, the load limit for your family. Not everybody could do... We didn't start doing international travel, jumping into it all at once.
Right.
We did start traveling domestically, all throughout the United States in an RV, which was a huge step in itself. Begin where you are. Travel where you are. Travel within your country. And then, as your opportunities and your desire grows, as your family's willingness and desire for adventure grows, then strike out in other directions. It's not the same for every family.
And a lot of times what happens is that one spouse will be, and it can be the husband or wife, but one spouse will be reading travel blogs like ours, traveldeepandwide.com, and there's many others, and reading travel literature, and getting excited about traveling while the other spouse is working or watching the children and that's not part of either. It's not part of that spouse's worldview. So the first thing you have to do, if one of you is wanting to travel, is to give the other spouse some time to come along.
Yes.
So if you have travel blogs that you like or articles, ask your spouse to read them together. And that's a really good place to start, because you definitely want to catch the vision together. And I think the moment for us, if there was a moment, we talked about traveling a lot. We never expected that we were going to jump in and traveling for 10 years full-time around the world. Our vision was to try to spend as much time together as we could. We started our marriage together, and the reason, Brent wasn't a farmer when we got married. Brent and I met in graduate school. He spent 10 years studying the Bible, and there was a huge financial cost and a relational cost for him to do that. He had to give up a lot, and not everybody understood what he did. And he came home and he started farming, but we were renting a farm. And so we were always taking care of somebody else's property. And we could never climb out. In Lancaster County, it's $1 million to buy the tiniest little farm. And so we were working and planting and working the soil, but we were getting nowhere. We're like on a treadmill. And we were working all the time. And so we didn't have the time to spend with our children that we wanted. And to make a long story short, we went camping. We loved camping. And we took the children on an accident. We were going to get a hotel. It was way too expensive. So we went to a little KOA campground and we stayed in a cabin. And I remember sitting there. We were sitting up on picnic tables and watching the children run around and play, little ones. And we just looked at each other and we thought, what if life could be like this? And that kind of sparked the flame. We thought that, yeah, this is actually what we really want. We're tired of cutting somebody else's grass only to have the owner of that house come and be ready to have their farm back and us be looking for the next farm. So that's really the vision that we took off on. We took off camping around the United States. We found out how we could do that. We'll make another vlog on how we fund our travel. And we grew to love it in the time that we had together. It was addictive, and we didn't want to give that up, and we haven't given that up. And our son is our oldest son then was he 6?
Yes.
7, maybe he had just turned 7, and we took off, and he's now 16 years old, and it's been fantastic. So jump on in, the water's wonderful.
We do give you that encouragement. I think of one thing that I might add to the end of that is there is in the Old Testament scriptures something that Moses said. He wrote, "Teach us to number our days, that we might apply our hearts to wisdom." Another poet says, our days are like sand flowing through our fingers.
Oh, yes.
You have these short moments with your children. And whatever your belief system centers around and whatever's at your core, we all have just a few moments with our children.
Yes.
And so we encourage you to seize those moments and think maybe outside the box that has been conditioned by people of all different beliefs, but that certain things must happen a certain way. When you get to the end of your life, what do you want to have given to your children? Think about those things, and we'll have maybe some other questions, and maybe you'll have some other questions and answers for us as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seize the day.